Hey everybody, I just wanted to do a quick review on this assignment that we're doing where we're marking up images, right? And let me just show you what I would do. I mean, I find an image and this is only 970 by 600, but I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy that image, I'm going to go into Photoshop. Now, if I do a file new, it's going to default to the size of the image. I kind of want it a little bigger than that, so I'm going to use web. Right? So what's a good size? This is a large size. There's a medium size. Let's go medium, right? So it's gonna open up a file there. I'm gonna flatten it because I don't like artboards. I'm gonna paste my image in with Apple V. I'm going to then resize it by doing Apple T, right? And I'm gonna open up. Remember, when you're sizing up, a lot of times you can lose resolution. I'm going to crop this, right? Now, the mistake people make when they're doing this assignment is everything gets cluttered. Well, first of all, I'm going to add a layer, right? So I can draw on it. This is what, let me just fix that crop. I don't like that crop. There we go. So the Last Supper, pretty much, you know, approximate symmetry. I mean, everything's centered. Hardly anything's going outside of the frame. Let me just get that there. Hold on. All right, there we go. So the mistake people make is they pick their brush, and I know it's not your fault because they showed you this in their tutorial, but they go, oh, here's the focal point, and then here's the second area of interest, and here's the third area of interest. And then, you know, they've got this going on and that. Well, look at that. You can't tell what's going on. There's all these squiggly lines over there, right? So what I would do, and the reason it's nice to have that in a separate layer is that you can just turn that off. You can add another layer and you can mark it down. Now, I'm just kind of winging it here. Let's see. I'd actually have to go back and review the assignment to see exactly what they want. But I tend to like to use, you know, if I'm going to use the brush, I'm going to make it a small brush. You can see here, you know, it's on 15. I'm going to take it down to like maybe, you know, 9. And let's just see. You know, I mean, that's okay. That's actually kind of big still, isn't it? Now, let's take it to 3. So if I hold my shift key down, it makes a straight line. Also, if I'm using the line tool, I can put an arrow at the end of it, right? So here we have a thickness 3 pixel, color light red, arrowhead at the end. Let's see what that looks like. Whoa, that's way too big. Hold on. Okay, I had to define my stroke and everything. So I think I already did this in one tutorial, but I just wanted to show you real quickly how you might do this. You know, here's the primary focal point. And that's still not the color I want. Hold on. Okay, yeah, it keeps defaulting to red. Anyway, instead of drawing a big line around Jesus here, I just want to have a small arrow, right? Let's see how that looks. And then you can move it around. You can have it, you know, diagonal. Or this primary focal point. What's the secondary focal point? I mean, what do I look at? I tend to, you know, these guys even out. Everyone's looking at him, right? So I could, if I want to make a comment about the gaze, I can put some more arrows in there. But I tend to think this grouping is important because his gaze is looking over here and they're looking at one another. So, I mean, I could draw a box around it, or I could just put, you know, another arrow there, right? And then I could put another arrow here, right? And then I could go to my numbers and let's see, what do I have here for my numbers? I like Meta Pro. Let's see what I'm defaulting to there. Maybe a little bit bigger, right? It's kind of a, you know, information design is really important, whether you're in interior design, whether you're in animation, whether you're in graphic design. I would actually do this better. You know, the letters are too small for the arrows, right? But I think you're going to get the point. This is what I'm going to say in my written component is, this is my primary focal point, you know, this is my secondary focal point, or this is another area of emphasis, right? And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to say, obviously, the primary focal point is Jesus because all the lines are pointing to him, right? It's one point perspective. I'm going to say the second thing I look at is this group here because they're so animated and the line of the arm is leading me up to the head and they're facing one another and the gaze is going back and forth. Another third group that is very strong with the sense of movement pointing to this area, right, is this group. Remember too, just in following directions, sometimes people lose points because they don't get the right ones, like the Last Supper would be here, and then I need to get something from Japan or China or India for this. I need to get a professional photograph, and then 2 of my own compositions. It's a lot, right? But again, to make it simple in terms of composition, in my written component, I am going to write, right? I'm going to write here, my first one, Last Supper. That was Da Vinci. I'm going to put the citation, where it is, all the date and all that, right, etc. And I'm going to put my description, 1 point perspective, main focal point, just what I was saying there, Jesus, secondary focal point, third focal point, and then do some descriptions. All lines lead to the center of the composition, right? Sorry, I'm typing fast because I don't want this to be this is already a 6-minute tutorial, right? Now, what would be really good now is if you sent this out as a PDF. Let me just finish with this. You're obviously going to do, the non-Western. The Pro Photo is number 3, right? 4 and 5 are your own original. Let's call those, right? So you're going to write a little bit because what I want to know is I want to know that you're looking, and you could turn this upside down. It doesn't have to be just about the subject matter, but this long horizontal of the table, the lines that are created from the gaze and the hands pointing to the center point. There's a lot of things in here. The value, the contrast of the light table, the darker panels in the back, the repetition of this pattern, the repetition of these shapes here. Just start using the terminology. Now I'm going to export this out as a JPEG, right? And you could just export it out and post it as a separate image, and then post your written component in the feedback area. But you can also, insert it here, right? And hold on, let me see how I'm going to do that. Hold on. Choose. There we go. Last Supper. Blink, blink. So when I go to open this up, right, if you post this as a PDF, which is good for this one assignment, right? If you post this as a PDF, all anyone has to do to look at it is open up your PDF and they see 1 with your description, and then you insert your other non-Western image here, and they can look at that and read your description. It makes it a lot easier for me because otherwise I have to click on 5 images and look at them while I bounce back to your written description. Here I can just scroll down, right, and see what you've done. So don't mess it up with a lot of lines and stuff. Do whatever, make whatever kinds of, if you want to, separate a group out for some reason, you can always put a little circle around or a little square around it or a circle, and you can edit, you can stroke that. Again, I like to put everything in a separate layer. You can do edit, stroke, and you can stroke it. Let's try 3 pixels in white, right? You can do something like that. You could use a circle. If you want to, put a circle around these guys, hold down your shift key to make a perfect circle. Move it where you want it. Do an edit. Make another layer if you want. Do an edit, stroke. All right, it's going to default now to my 3 pixels. Deselect. So now somebody can look at this, and instead of trying to look past a whole bunch of messy lines, they can go, oh, 1, 2, 3, and then they can go back to your writing, and they can go, oh, 1, he wrote this about, the main focal point. 2, he's talking about that group to the right. 3, he's talking about that group to the left. Dun, 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 dun. Let me know if you have any questions on this. I've sent out a bunch of stuff on rule of thirds too. Obviously, let me see. Before I leave you, does this follow the rule of thirds? I would say no, because on a rule of thirds, and let's go back to this. Remember, on rule of thirds, and you're going to measure it. You're not going to eyeball it like I've been doing here, right? Rule of thirds. I'm just eyeballing it here. You're going to measure it so it's exact, because if it's not exact, how do we know what the thirds are? Now you can see here, someone could argue that the table goes along, and I would measure it first. If you're just even a little bit off, then it's not going to follow the rule of thirds. You can't just say, the table's kind of almost there at the rule of thirds. I don't see a horizon line going along the rule of thirds. I don't see the main focal point obviously isn't in the rule of thirds. So I would just say, while the table is close to the horizontal line that defines the lower third of the composition, I don't believe it's exactly on the line. So I would say that since the focal point is not in the intersection, and since the table is not exactly on the line that defines the lower third of the composition, this does not use rule of thirds.